Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, a member of the BlueWire podcast family. He is host of the Gyro Step podcast. They cover the, say it with me now, defending world champion Milwaukee Bucks. I've known this guy for a long time, and somehow this is the first time you've ever been on this podcast. Ty Windisch, what's going on?
Not much. It's a shame the Bucks have to be reigning world champs for me to get an invite to the most prestigious podcast out there, but I'll take it. It was worth it. It was all worth it just for this. Thank you so much for having me.
We have lofty standards here. Listen, I'm pretty sure we've had podcast hosts that, I'm not going to name any names, are not as good as you, A, and B, cover some pretty dog shit teams that have been on this pod. So I have no excuse is the point.
It's all good. All good.
Glad to hear. Very glad to hear. So before we'll get into, so obviously for anybody listening to this who may not be as in tune with the ins and outs of the NBA schedule, how dare you? The Knicks play the Bucks tonight after they played them last week, which we'll talk a little bit about that. And we're going to get into that in a bit. But first, listen, man, you get to talk about the team at the top of the mountain. I can only imagine what that feels like. So I'll just start out by asking, like, what's it been like since the finals, or like during the finals, since the finals has it been?
Yeah, it's, obviously right when it happens, it's pure elation, and Bucks fans being Bucks fans going through some of the stuff that we have gone through following this team over the last 10, 20, I mean, for some people longer, but people around my age, maybe 10 years, maybe more, pure elation, but not until literally until the buzzer sounds. I think maybe it was like Giannis hugging PJ or something like that. His time expired. And that at that moment, I let myself celebrate. I was getting tweets. People are tagging me. Oh, congrats, Ty. No. Until it's over, it's not over. Don't do this. I still remember 2019, you go up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. The Warriors are banged up on the other side. You're looking ahead. All of a sudden, it's gone. So, but it's pure
That's the overtime game, right? Game 3?
Yeah, game 3 was a questionable Siakam out of bounds call. Just a wild series. Nikola Mirotic ruined my life for a couple of years there. But and then
sorry
of course,
to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever.
I have some stories.
Oh, okay,
of players who have ruined.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant Mirotic. I was like, what did Mirotic do to the Knicks? Okay.
I mean, Mirotic punched Bobby Portis punched Mirotic, and I guess that maybe hastened his exit out of Chicago, and he ended up in New York. It's the only Mirotic connection I got. I know you guys got Bobby Portis. How about that?
And he was instantly a fan favorite because he punched Nikola Mirotic, actually. And that's how Bucks fans feel about Nico. But anyway. Then the bubble happens. Yeah, and the bubble happens, and that sucks. So there was just so much, I think, tension around Giannis leaving, Giannis not re-signing, all this. Even after he extends, with the way the league is now, you could still get out. But I think now that the elation has subsided a little bit when I'm not doing my daily watch of all the championship videos, it's just calming, right? I just feel like it's a lot easier to be calm about the team. Doesn't feel like there's this, burden on the back of they got to win one. They have so much to prove. Can Chris be the number 2? Was Drew worth it? Can Giannis be the number 1?
Is Bud the right coach?
Is Bud the right? Yeah, exactly. That was a big one. That's a good one.
I'm sure you didn't get tired of that conversation at all.
I was the one starting that conversation. I was one of the more vocal Bud critics, but he won me over. He's good enough. And I think, the argument against it from a lot of people for getting rid of Bud before that, obviously, for a lot of people was you can try the wilderness. That's when you fire a coach, you're in the wilderness to an extent, right? You don't know if the next guy is going to be better or not. Look at the Pacers before Carlisle. And I think I was down to try the wilderness, and now I'm not. He can do it. Why would you try someone else? Sure. I think there's a lot of safety in knowing you have a coach you can rely on. So yeah, I would say the best part of it, especially with the way the Bucks have started this year, is just that calming, they did it. We can think back on that. We know they can do it. Let's just try to get healthy and keep getting a little bit better here.
I have to ask before we move on from this point, did it make podcasting about the team any I'm actually any more difficult? Was it tougher to podcast about a team that okay, we have nothing to complain about, there's everything's good, and then how has it been so far this season? Like, are people like right back? Have you gotten like right back into the flow of like, fuck, they're 4-6 and like this and that, you know?
No, not really. We haven't. I mean, the Bucks Twitter, they're saying the Bucks have their pick this year. This is a big brain move. They're going to pick high in the first round. And I was like, shut up. But it didn't get harder, I would say. I think, listen, people are more interested in the Bucks than they used to be, which is great for us.
Sure.
And, we still have stuff to bitch about. I mean, that PJ Tucker signs with Miami to save luxury tax money, like day one of free agency. They're not good. The 15th spot is open. There's still stuff to gripe about. It's not as calming as it is. It's not like, well, they're infallible now, right? Like they can't do anything bad. We still have stuff to pick at. We always will, because you just see, how thin the margin can be between champion and not. So I think it's not harder. It's just like, it's almost like there's this safety net of like, if things go really bad someday, we're just going to fire up a championship playoff run look back series, baby. We got content to mine here.
Yeah, and you could do that. The best we could do is, and we do it often, is talk about the old 90s days, but we don't quite have that same video.
Linsanity, you can do, I don't know.
You know what's funny? Not to get too off track, but like Linsanity is not, I don't know, Andrew, feel free to jump in here. I don't feel like people talk about Linsanity much anymore, right? Am I off here?
To an extent, people don't talk about it, but there is a contingent of
yes.
Well, because I'm not going to throw shots at you here. I promise you.
Of course, you're going to throw shots at me. You love throwing shots. There
is a contingent of Knicks fans that are not the most thrilled with Carmelo Anthony's tenure here, Ty, and as a result, Linsanity could have been so much more than a flash in a pan had Carmelo Anthony not come back and ruined everything. And so Linsanity's talked about more like a what if, but I think overall we're able to look at it more in context.
No, that's well put. Yes. So the point is we don't have the championship parade to fire up. But things are going well now, not as well as they are for you guys, but pretty well. And I have to say, the win over you guys on Friday, I'm not trying to like glow here, but like they needed that in the worst way. And I actually think to get it in the way that they did, what was your experience watching that game? I'm curious.
That was brutal. So that's one, I was actually traveling for most of it, and I only caught really the fourth quarter. So you tune in, it's like, oh, this is great. I can see them coast to a win. And I think maybe to a lesser extent, the Bucks kind of needed it too, just because.
Did they really?
Oh, they're going on this East Coast road trip, and now Philly being decimated, they're going to play as we record. Sorry, we're showing you how the sausage is made. As the night we record this, they're going to play the Sixers. I don't know how that's going to go. They kind of need to win, and luckily the Sixers are without even more guys than the Bucks are. But without Chris for a while, without Brooke for no one knows how long, without Dante for maybe the rest of his contract. I mean, the only sense people are getting is it's going to be a while, and at some point it's like, is he going to play for the Bucks again? I'm honestly not sure.
Checking for updates on him because
there's no updates on anyone is the frustrating part about Bucks injury reports this year.
And just casual fans may not know, Dante DiVincenzo is a very good player.
Started on a couple very good teams, was going to be the starter on the Bucks all playoffs if he doesn't get hurt, probably. And he does, and it's something serious with his ankle apparently. And he's off the scooter now. He was scooting around for a while. Now he's walking, but apparently not close to returning. So
you're banged up.
Yeah, definitely banged up. And it's just like they had a nice lead over the Knicks. And it's like, okay, the Knicks are good, but steal this one. And then, if you somehow lose to Boston, a terrible franchise, and some of the other good teams they're going to play, then it's okay. Like, go 500 in this road trip, stick around 500. You can get back up. Because, listen, it's, I think there's this idea, because LeBron did it 1 or 2 years, that it doesn't matter if you go in as a 7th, or now it does with play in as a 6th seed, right? Like
So I was going to ask you, who cares if you guys are the 6th seed? I mean, the 7th seed would be less than ideal.
That's very tenuous.
And you're already thinking about, well, I mean, look, we're already talking about it here, and I openly asked the question on a recent podcast, like, who's the 13th best team in the East? And I'm like looking at the standings, and like in the back of my mind, I'm like, shit, are we the 13th best team in the East? Because I like really, you could look up and down, and it's like, so who's your answer gonna be? Is it Atlanta? Is it Boston? I guess is it Boston? Is it going to wind up being Charlotte at the end of the day? Like whatever your answer is, there's another person willing to be like, no, that's actually the 5th best team. Like whatever. It's so stacked. So I get you saying it is tenuous already.
Yeah, and it's just, they didn't need it, and this is what Bucks fans will say who aren't. And I'm not worried, but look, it's like I meant, it's all about the margin when you're trying to win, right? So if you can get the game 7 at home instead of the road, even if it won't necessarily stop you, they won in Brooklyn. I'd still rather have the advantage personally. Like I would rather, a harder path is cool. It makes for a great story. The story doesn't matter if you actually don't get through it though. So I would prefer them to at least have, home court for some rounds. It doesn't seem like they're going to get one anymore. It looks like the Sixers are going to do the same old thing of piling up wins and then doing nothing with their seeding result. But I like that I feel very safe in slandering some of my least favorite East teams.
We can slander.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick rankings. Who is the most fun East team to slander? The easy answer for us is Brooklyn, although I wind up praising Brooklyn a lot because I just have a lot of respect for Durant.
Yeah, that's the tough part about that.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Philly is up there.
They're number one. The process failed. I don't want to hear about the process. Go to the 3rd round of the playoffs if it's such a success. Do what the Atlanta Hawks did in like year 2 of their rebuild.
By beating you.
Yeah. That's never stopped being hilarious to me. The Simmons stuff, I'm almost bored of. It's like just too much at this point. I don't
the daily
about, oh my God.
We don't have to talk about that. I have no idea who's going to be the top seed in the look. If you ask me to put money on it right now, I'd probably say Brooklyn will be the 1, and I still think the Bucks are going to make a run for 2. The thing I found interesting watching that game is I feel like there's been a conventional wisdom amongst some people. And we could get into Chris Middleton if you want in a sec, because I have a lot, talk about a guy I have a lot of respect for. Like just, you put Giannis plus shooting, that's a 50-win team, right? Drew's not all the way back, but even like if he's doing his thing on defense, it's like, and he's out, whatever. It's Giannis plus shooting. And it was weird watching that game. I don't know if it was maybe a lack of intensity, what it was, but it felt like, wow, Giannis plus shooting is like not getting it done as much as I expected. I fully expected to lose that game going away. And that was before the game started, by the way. And then it just didn't kind of hold together.
Yeah, I think Giannis didn't have probably one of his worst games of the year, quite honestly, which is somewhat, I think, a credit to the Knicks. But
Nerlens Noel, baby.
Oh yeah. I love Nerlens Noel. Like, I think Nerlens Noel is a hell of a player. I'm a big, and I look stupid for this now because Jared Allen's had an awesome season. I think he was just player of the month or player of the week or something.
Yeah, player of the week. Yeah.
But when they signed that deal, I was like, if he didn't improve, and it looks like he has significantly, but I was like, would you rather not just have Nerlens Noel on this contracts Nerlens Noel always has to sign? Nerlens Noel can play, but Jared Allen rocks, and it was a stupid thing, but I like Nerlens Noel.
But was it, hold on, I'm going to give you some credit here. Was it a stupid thing? Because listen, we talk about this all the time because there's this ongoing, it seems like it's been going on for 2 years, Mitchell Robinson contract discussion. They could have made him restricted. They didn't. He's now going to be unrestricted unless they extend him up to a certain point that they can. Like, what is the value of a rim running center who protects the rim? And like, how much do the gradients matter in that conversation? And like, all summer people were like, wow, no, Mitch, when Mitch is out there, it's different. He could do stuff that Nerlens can. And now we're 11 games into the season and Noel has outplayed Mitch Robinson. So it's like, who the fuck knows? Yeah.
No, that's the interesting that I'm a little surprised they're not making him restricted. But my thing with Mitch was always like, I don't think he's ever going to get the contract that Mitch fans think, because it's like what you said. I mean, a big guy, especially with some injury concerns, who's not a shooter, not a great passer, and not a
passer really at all right now. He gives you a couple here and there. That's about it.
And just not like, Clint Capella is like on the borderline of DPOY talks. And I feel like he's probably going to never make more than he makes now. Like there's just it's a hard position, man. It's a hard position to get paid. I mean, Miles Turner's contract, and I don't know if he's going to get that much more as cap percentage than he's on right now. But
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah. But the Knicks Bucks game, They're too small. They're too small now. And usually a lot of the games that they've been losing, they're 4-6 as we record, are Giannis's plus minus swing is still really good. They're still winning the minutes he plays more often than not. This game was an exception. They lost his minutes, which if you're losing his minutes with that many guys out, you're toast. And they were toast.
Staggering.
But I think part of it was, Rose just decided not to miss in the fourth quarter, and Giannis was out there, and that tanked his plus minus. Yeah. I tweeted, how can Derrick Rose keep doing this? Like, just stop doing this. It's not fair that you can keep doing this.
I mean, I don't know how much you watch. You had your own stuff to worry about, so you might not have been watching Knicks Hawks, but like, it wasn't that Derrick Rose was the Knicks' best player. Derrick Rose was the Knicks' best player by a significant margin until Game 5 when he just ran out of gas because he'd been playing like 35 minutes a night. But like, I wrote before the season, I'm like, saying that Derrick Rose is a top 15 point guard in the league, is that insane? I don't know if that's insane. Like, you have your clear top 10, top 12 guys, and then there's like another group of like 10 or so guys. So it's like, you catch the right guy on any given night. It's I don't know. We love Derrick Rose here. So you're in good company.
Yeah. But like they just are finally getting Bobby Portis back, which has been helpful. But besides Brook Lopez, who's been out since the huge, amazing Brooklyn win, perfect ring night, he's got quote unquote back soreness, and they're not saying anything else. They're just saying he's out basically indefinitely. They don't know when he's going to come back, which is bothersome because there's not a backup center. They kept Robin Lopez 1 year. Honestly, I have my eye on. I would do anything. I don't think they can trade for him until December. You really hope Brook is back by then. I would do anything to get Robin Lopez back, but they're just too small. Like, especially when Giannis doesn't play, but even when he does, their championship thing for a lot of that run was like, I keep using the term weaponize your size. That's what they did. Like, they were bigger. They grabbed every rebound. They scored in the paint over and over and over. And they can't play that way. And they got better at switching. They switched a lot in the Atlanta series. Like, that's something that they can do now. But this is never a team that wants to switch for 48 minutes a game. And now they're doing some hard hedging. That's been working a little bit more, like forcing turnovers, using some of the length. And guys like Grayson Allen's been racking up steals when they're doing that. He's got good hands. But
he's good. He's a good player.
I was really, when they did the extension, even I was like, hell yeah, that's going to be a great extension.
I think Windhorst said it on his podcast as soon as it got signed. It's a very tradable contract. It's a contract that's like made to be traded. But why do you want to trade it right now? Because he's good.
Well, and it's funny because like there's still, I think, a little contingent of fans out there, and maybe it's more in people who haven't been watching the Bucks as much, who also have not forgotten about Dante. But I still see it posed like, is Dante going to start when he comes back? I'm like, hell no. Like, they gave Grayson Allen $20 million over the next 2 years. They didn't do that for him to be a sixth man. Like, look what they gave Pat. Portis isn't a good example because they couldn't pay him. But I think the guys they envision coming off the bench are not getting that kind of salary slot from the Bucks. So
wait, Dante's going to be unrestricted this upcoming.
He's going to be restricted.
Oh, he's restricted. Sorry, because he's he's a first round pick. Yeah.
Well, it'll be up to them. They'll get to pick.
I would imagine they will make him restricted. That'll be wow.
I don't know.
Really?
If they do, I think it'll be for a sign and trade. I don't know what kind of interest will be out there. I think they're going to look to move him. This is not sourced at all, but if he doesn't come back, let's say he returns to play in March. Are you going to be comfortable playing him heavy minutes in the playoffs by April on a rotation that has a lot of good players? Like,
that's a good point.
And if he doesn't play in the last two playoffs, this is his third major foot injury since Nova. Like, I don't think the Bucks are going to want to pay him a lot of money. The 15th spot is open. They're dying for depth with all these injuries. It's a tax thing. We just know it's a tax thing. I ripped luxury tax savings for putting up 0 points, rebounds, blah, blah, blah this season because they really need some production. But
good call.
Yeah. But I think there's a chance that we don't see him play for the Bucks again, and it's just like one of those things. So it wouldn't stun me if they just let him go. So that's what they did with Jabari Parker when he came up. They were like,
obviously that was the right move. Someone will pay him.
I think someone will give him a flyer contract at least. Maybe the Knicks.
Look, it's funny. The one thing we haven't talked about a lot this year is like off-season stuff because we're just kind of
good. You know what? I'm happy for you guys. I'm so happy for you guys.
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
I heard some Knicks fans earlier. They were like, I don't even want to do the Dame thing. I don't even want to talk about the Dame thing. Like, I'd rather just have RJ. And I'm like, I don't know about that. The way Dame started the season, now I'm like, oh, maybe it's a good call. But I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm glad it's not like, who are we going to get in 2023? You have a good team. I think it's good to enjoy a good team. I think there's a problem with basketball if you guys were like, yeah, they're going to win 45 games maybe this year and all that. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about what Julius Randle's salary slot get us. That stuff is toxic.
When you've been through, I mean, listen, you've been through. So like your year. So what is there? I feel like I know your history pretty well. So basically from the Ray Allen, big dog, Sam Cassell team, and then what turned into what was Gary Payton there for a half a year?
Yeah. That was George Karl, man. Never let George Karl run your team. Furious George, love him on Twitter, but if he doesn't like your star player, you're getting a bag of chips for him, and it sucks.
And then things were not good for things. Good call, Andrew. Things were not good for a while, and then they were better. And then there was when was the Grievous Vasquez trade?
Christ. I think 15.
Okay, but that
was 2015. Yeah,
but that was after they drafted Giannis. That's right. Okay,
yeah.
Because it's funny. I went through all of your team's moves in a newsletter I did this offseason because like Knicks fans were hemming and hawing about like different things that the organization could do or might do. And I'm like, listen, the Bucks are proof that you do not have to get everything right. And you could actually get some shit really wrong.
Yeah.
You just have to nail the things that matter. And you guys did nail the things that matter. But like, look, you had Coach Kidd for a while. That was, how was that experience for you?
Listen, I will tell you, every Bucks fan knew as soon as Dallas hired him, and they're 7-3 now. I get that. I don't trust it. Everyone was like, take the under on the Mavericks because they're going to blow up. Luka's going to throw a basketball at his head. He's not a great basketball coach. He's not a great person. He is just the most
understatement.
Bitter. Yeah. Huge understatement. If you've read Mir and Fader's terrific book, Giannis, The Improbable Rise of an NBA MVP, the kid stuff got all the hype, which sucks because there's actual great Bucks Giannis stuff in there, of course. But the kid stuff in there, it's like the guy is just toxic and Luka's already yelling at coaches that they already had. That's going to be a powder keg. But yeah, that sucked. The kid thing was not a fun time at all.
Luckily you get to put that behind you.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm curious about, I was, until the Knicks beat the Sixers like C squad, last night, I was more worried about this game because I just think something's not quite right in the water in New York. But I thought they figured some things out against that team, even if it was a decimated lineup. I'm feeling a little bit more hopeful against the Bucks. At the same time, you guys I have the ultimate amount of respect for you. I'm curious what you think as an outsider, what your impressions of this Knicks team are, because you said a minute ago you thought they were good, which is something I'm not used to hearing. Do you think the Knicks are actually a decent team?
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, I think it's they probably have a kind of wide swing range, and it depends on a couple things like, what is RJ going to be both long term and this year? That's obvious. And I'm sure you guys talk about this all the time because you have no choice. I don't love the 2.6 assist number I'm seeing on his slash line right now. That doesn't tell the whole story. I don't watch a lot of RJ.
No, but it's funny you bring that up because it's the thing people concentrate on, the 3-point shooting and people concentrate on the finishing as the two things that they focus on the most. And since he was drafted, I'm like, you got him so he could be a 5-assist a game playmaking wing. Like that's his ceiling in the league. And I feel like for whatever reason, people don't pay as much attention to that. That said, I will defend RJ here because he has thrown quite a lot of nice passes this year that guys just have missed shots. So I think that's a bit of a misnomer. At the same time, it's not that far off. I mean, 2.6 assists is 2.6 assists. So. No.
But just generally on the Knicks, though, I just feel like there's a lot of good players on the roster, and I think that's how you make a good team. I think I was a Randall doubter after the playoffs, but I think he's looked pretty good this year. Looked really good against the Bucks, but he's looked pretty good. It seems on the whole, he's continued to do his thing of he can score by himself, he can score on assists, he can dish the ball a little bit. I liked and I kind of made fun of him for it at the time. The contracts aged better as more details came out, but like Fournier and Kemba are just good players. I think probably were overrated at one point and are now underrated. That weird thing we do where it's like you look at the dollar amount more than the production, even if they're not making that much anymore. And I just think like at Fournier was hyped to be like the savior of the Celtics and then got COVID. It didn't work out. And actually Kemba kind of was too. And just nothing works out there, coincidentally enough. But
man, just shots fired left and right. What did Boston do to you? Did Boston hurt you?
2016? 2016, I think they beat the Bucks in the playoffs.
Okay, and
they were up 1-0 in 2019, and they actually it was later. It was 17. It was 18. It was 18. I think Bucks didn't go in 16. Lost to Raptors in 17. Celtics in 18. Raptors in 19. Heat in 20, and then no one this last one, which is cool. But no, I think I think they're a good team though, and I've kind of come around on Tibbs. I didn't like the hire when they first got him, but I just think if they last through the year, I think they're going to be a good team because of the way he coaches and the things that he stresses.
I think, yeah. I mean, look, I was not always on board with the Tibbs. Well, let me rephrase that. When his name first came up, like anybody, I thought of all the things that doubters have said about him over the years. And then the more I kind of dug in, I'm like, if you have an organization that is a clown show, yes, and there has not been any clownier clown show over the last 20 years than the Knicks. This is probably the guy you need to come in and clean shit up. And that's exactly what he's done. He's come in and he's cleaned shit up. And there's buy-in here. I mean, I think that part of it is legit. So for as much as some people may quibble with certain aspects of how he runs the team, for the most part, I think we've been pretty happy with him. But, we'll see what this year brings, because you guys are contenders. The Nets are contenders. I still kind of think Philly's going to be heard from somewhere down the line. What do you, I'm obligated to ask this as someone who just impartial. What do you think is going to happen with Simmons ultimately?
I think they're going to work out a trade at some point. You think
they're going to work out a trade?
Yeah, I think they're going to trade him. I think I think he may show up and play at some point. It doesn't seem like he wants to, but
could you fathom? Like, if that was in Philly, what would that ticket go for?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it would be ugly. That's for sure. I honestly, I think there is a way that they could kind of resolve it, but I really think they won't for two reasons. One, it's gotten way uglier than I thought it would ever really get, quite honestly. Yeah. Like you look at the past, and I think the issue is he's not a superstar. If he was, this whole thing is done. But like Harden had to show up and play. James Harden is obviously, on a different level than Ben Simmons. He had to show up and play for the Rockets. But, you show up, you half-ass, but still prove that, like, I'm James Harden, right? Like, I can do a 30-point triple-double, not a big deal. And then teams are like, okay, yeah, he can still do the thing. We'll trade for him. I was like, they're going to get Ben to show up. He's going to do his 6-6 deal. And some team is going to be like, cool, you know what? He's 24. Yeah. We'll do it. I don't know if that happens anymore. But the real reason I think they will trade him is they just seen the basketball part of it doesn't work. Like, it's not like you get him back and you think you're going to win the finals this year. Maybe they do think that. That's how organizations kind of work, but I just don't think it works. I don't think it was ever going to work with the way Ben and Joel play together. And I think the crux of the reason he's not been traded yet is you got to look at it and go, how much more could a team accommodate Ben than the Sixers accommodated Ben? I mean, they bring in Seth Curry, who's like a shooter. Danny Green's a shooter. Joel became a shooter. Joel was an MVP candidate because suddenly he could shoot. How much more? Is it the Warriors or nothing?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I think that's the issue is teams are looking like they kind of had four really good shooters around him. Like, I made this case on our newsletter, like, the Bucks had way worse spacing around Giannis than the Sixers had around Ben Simmons. Like, people always do that hypothetical, like, oh, put Simmons where Giannis is, and they would first off, they'd be way worse. Second off, let's look at the other side of that. Let's look at Danny Green, Seth Curry, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, and Giannis. What is that team doing? That team is destroying the freaking world. So I hate that.
Giannis and Embiid,
much, but oh my God,
Giannis and Embiid on the same team would be
good luck scoring ever.
That would be something. Yeah, that would be something. I haven't really talked about him in a while, but I have to admit I am kind of an Embiid guy. I appreciate
he rocks. He's amazing. Yeah,
he's just such a heel. And he's a lot of fun. So anyway, long-winded way of saying that I do think Philly will be heard from, because I agree with you. I think they're going to figure out a way to make a trade, and then there's like the rest of the East. I guess we have to throw Miami in there at this point.
Yeah.
The Knicks are not there yet. They're not going to get there with this current roster, but I think everybody's just kind of enjoying it for what it is, like you said before, and we'll worry about the next thing when the next thing gets here, because isn't there always the next thing?
There always is. I will say though, I think there's more than just like it being fun for fans and you guys, that they're good. I think there's real value in just organizational stability and like showing that. And I think we've seen from the Nets right there in town, like if you are based in one of these crazy markets, there can be even more value. But I mean, the Bucks, like a couple of years ago, I mean, I guess 2019 people really were high on them, in 2020 as well. But for the most part, like they took a lot of pieces that initially nobody really cared about all that much. I mean, drafting Giannis was like a lucky thing, but Chris is a throw-in, and there were plenty of times they could have given up on Chris over the last 7 years, and they didn't. The reaction to the Drew Holiday trade and extension, both moves, was like, Bucks are so stupid. He's not good enough. What are you doing? Like, there's really like, I think more value than people think in like being confident you have the right guys, keeping the right guys around, and just like not every time, like you said, they've had to pivot out of some bad moves, right? Like DJ Augustine kid, a lot of misses.
Yeah, but what NBA team, I guess the point is that what NBA team doesn't screw up? Exactly. I mean, what do you say? The Warriors are the best run organization the last 5-6 years. Well, they just drafted.
They've had 6 centers on their roster in all of those runs. And like, no, everyone fucks up.
Yeah, exactly. I still can't wait to see how Wiseman over Ball looks in a few years. But I even remember the first Middleton extension, the one, where was it, like 3 for 42 or something? There were people that were critical of that because they were like, I don't know, and that was back when salaries were a little bit lower. And that dude has turned into, I mean, he's just a fucking monster. He's carving out a borderline Hall of Fame career. If they win another championship,
they're going to need to. And
I think they need to win one more.
He didn't make All-Star last year because he was bad the first half of the year.
He's got two All-Stars, no All-NBA.
He got snubbed. The thing was, he had enough votes for All-NBA the one year. And the positional thing screwed him. He ended up not making it, even though he had more votes than someone, but more total points, but not votes at position. They got to look at that. Should not happen, in my opinion. Like, just take the best players. Who cares? They're not playing games with these teams. But yeah, he needs to make a couple of those teams. So hopefully he can get back from COVID and obviously for a lot of reasons. Hopefully he can get back from COVID for him first. But it'd be great for him to notch like a couple All NBAs, some more All Stars here, and then he certainly could have a case at it. He's got a gold medal now. Yeah,
I was about to say that. Listen, they factor in all this stuff with these guys. Last thing before I let you go, Giannis. We were saying on, I think it was the Patreon pod a few weeks ago, that big if, but if they win another, he leads the team to another championship, and he could notch one more MVP. We were actually, I think, pitching both of those things happening in this year. I think I don't want to say he's already out of the MVP race because we've seen guys come back after certainly slower. He hasn't had a slow start. There are other guys who are a little bit more otherworldly.
And they're not winning. Like if you're 4 and 6, you're not going to be in there. The Bucks weren't in the last top 10 power ranking I saw. And I was like, you know what? Fair. They played like ass. Like, I get it. I'm not mad.
It's 10 games. We'll see what happens against Philly. And against the Knicks. But I digress. So I think if he could check, though, I don't even know if he needs another MVP, to be honest with you. I think one more championship, if he gets the 2 chips and the 2 MVPs, I think that puts him in the top 15 conversation, right? I would imagine you would concur.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and I think he's already got a case for greatest Buck. Just looking at Buck's tenures of all time, I personally think he is there.
Kareem was there for 7 years, 9 years,
7 or 8, I think. I should know that offhand, but he had played for a long time in LA too, and obviously came into the league pretty old because he played, I think, 4 years of college. But Kareem has all the numbers still because Kareem came in, like Giannis came in at 7 points a game or whatever. Kareem comes in and is like,
he led league in scoring. Yeah,
he's like 30 and 15, and then they win a ring his second year. So it's going to take Giannis a while to catch up to the numbers if he chooses to do that, and fingers crossed he does. But I think Kareem's championship, as great as it is to win one, it was like kind of an injured Bullets team, and it wasn't the most adversity in the run. And I don't know. I think Giannis beating KD in Brooklyn Game 7 and going on and come back from the injury to beat the Suns, like I give him a slight nod, but yeah, I think all-time placement. I mean, I try not to look at it too much right now, just because there's so much left to be done. But I said when they won it, and I stand by it, he's put himself on a GOAT trajectory with the years with how much he's done in such little time. I think Mike, and maybe Duncan did. I forget what the combo is, but like Finals MVP, DPOY by this age or something like that. Like listen, there's a lot left to be done. There's players that won early and then didn't go back, but he's put himself in a place where I think he could get to that other conversation a long time from now of like, number one. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take a whole lot.
To me right now, he's in the, like when you look at eras, and we talk about this a lot, it's like there's your Jordan to Shaq and Duncan to Kobe to LeBron and KD. And now I think he's going to be the first name that we say now. I mean, 2 MVPs in a championship. Is it going to be Giannis and Luka? Is it going to be Giannis and somebody else that I probably should have thrown in Steph. Like there's all these guys are in the top 15 in some order, but to get to where man, how old is he?
He turns 27 in December.
Jesus Christ.
27 or 28. I think 27. Yeah. 27.
That's still fucking young.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He's got a long way to go. And he just got like this good, relatively speaking. Yeah. He turns 27 December 6th.
That's and thank you, Andrew, for typing in. Kareem was in Milwaukee for 6 seasons.
Yeah. I think he came out of college at like 23 or something like that.
Yeah. So he's already the greatest buck,
Didn't lose a game in college too. So you understand why he stayed in college as long as he did.
Kareem's GOAT case is he just won everywhere. My favorite Kareem story is they didn't let him play varsity his first year at UCLA, I believe, because that was just like the rule. It's a stupid rule. Like break the rule. It's Kareem. Mm-hmm. But they won the championship that year without him. And he led the freshmen to beat that team in like a full-on scrimmage.
I think I've read that too.
He never lost.
I put in my top, because Andrew made me do a top 75 or a top 15 ranking at the very least.
I made him rank a top 75. Yes.
And I put Kareem number 2, and I think got a little bit of pushback.
Oh wow,
on that,
interesting.
Yeah,
I have him 3rd. I have the obvious 2 guys, 1 and 2.
That's fair.
But it's
in what order?
I got MJ Brown.
Okay, that's the correct answer.
I mean, it's just 2 3-peats. It's just like
Thanks,
in the era. It's just like, oh my god. But I have so much trouble. Like, where do you put Bill Russell? Right? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to quantify what he did. He's very good. Clearly, he's a great player. But I don't know, man.
If you ask anybody twice our age, he's already too low than what we've discussed so far.
It should be Wilton Bill, man.
Exactly, and then everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing I want to say before I let you go, I would just want to make sure I have Andrew in here for this. In our text conversation, our group text conversation before the finals last year, there was one person and one person only who predicted Bucks in 6.
That would be the guy you're talking to right now, Mr. Jonathan. Yes.
Let's go.
Specifically said Bucks in 6, and the answer being they have the best player on the court throughout the entire series.
That was
what won out.
And man, I will say it was funny because I saw some people saying Giannis was always this guy. They were just better this year. He wasn't. He got way better in that.
Oh, no. They found something. And the team found something.
It was the Brooklyn series. That's what did it. Like when they were down 2-0, it was one of those moments like, are they going to break and lose, or are they going to fight through this and figure some shit out? And they figured it out. I will say that's a great call. I almost had the whole run before the playoffs started. And the Heat couldn't pull out that game 1 where everything went against the Bucks. I said Bucks in 5, Bucks in 7, Bucks in 6, Bucks in 6. It ended up being 4, 7, 6, and 6 because they couldn't win that damn game because Chris had to make Duncan Robinson food for the 500th time that night, and they lost. But I was like, damn it! Like that would have been such a great tweet.
No one wanted to win that. I remember that game.
Brutal.
That no one wanted to win that game.
Put in our shoes, like I think in the pod we talked ourselves into being confident, right? Because we were like the things that went well for the Heat, the Bucks. I think there's good signs they can do this, but there was a lot of quivering on Bucks Twitter after the bubble series of like, oh my god, like,
oh wow,
oh my god, if we lose this to them in the first round this time, oh my, there were people wanting to duck them, like lose a game to avoid them. I was like, no. If you're the best team, play like the best team. You cannot back into the playoffs. That's a losing recipe. But it was scary for a second there, but then not scary at all, that was such a fun series. But no, I appreciate you paying the recognition there. He's not coming, by the way, just so you know.
Who?
Giannis is not coming to New York.
Oh, listen,
that ship sailed. Don't worry.
Listen, you want to talk to my co-host on the Sunday pods, Jeremy Cohen. He was the one who would periodically I'm just throwing it in there to show the math. I'm like, why the fuck are we doing this?
Since we're tooting horns, by the way, I predicted Bucks sweeping the Heat. I will say that. I was very early on the Heater fraud bandwagon last year. Yes, but Knicks fans get mad at me because I also predicted the Hawks would win. So there's a gift and a curse when you're looking at net rating.
Your Atlanta Hawks.
My Atlanta Hawks, exactly. My Atlanta Hawks.
This year. Hopefully not this year.
No. I'm very stern on what we chanted at the Garden. Fuck Trae Young forever and ever. I love how, by the way, you were saying the Eastern Conference teams that you like to throw shots at, and we went through a list. You can be honest on our pod. The number one fan base to throw shots at, Ty, is the New York Knicks. And we've earned it.
I don't care that much. You know why? I know we're trying to rap and we're not being good.
You're good.
But
no, it's fine. You're good.
Giannis had so many big moments against Carmelo in particular, but the Knicks. So I feel like I almost cherish more and not really. It's not. I wouldn't say rivalry, right? Like they haven't met in the playoffs ever, or in a very long time at the very least. But
Giannis, I can remember now.
Giannis's first game, I think, was against Carmelo and the Knicks. His first start.
His first buzzer beater, I remember, was against the Knicks.
Yeah. I think that might have been that game. No, I think that was a different game. And Carmelo was very cool to Giannis when that was his first All-Star team. And kind of Carmelo was the guy. Because there's quote, he was like, oh my God, I'm playing against Carmelo Anthony in my first game. And Carmelo was very cool to him in their first All-Star. So I always look at the Knicks fondly as this. I don't know. Some of the, listen, I get annoyed sometimes at some of the, oh, baby, Knicks 2020. It's kind of over now. Not that they're a real team, but before that, right? Kristaps and KD and Kyrie and all that.
Believe me, we're glad it's done too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we're very glad it's done
but
too.
I don't even really take shots at the Knicks. I'm like, you know what? I was laughing at Phil Jackson and everything, but who wasn't?
We were laughing.
We weren't.
Because we were laughing so we didn't cry.
Yeah, exactly. It's a reflex.
Yes, exactly. That was a reflex. This was a lot of fun. Again, it was very silly for us to wait this long to finally podcast together. I've
got to return the favor now. I mean, it's we've had the pod going too, and we haven't asked. So you can't feel too bad because we have to feel equally bad. More so now.
Extend the invite anytime. I obviously would love to. Before we let you go, could you kindly tell the folks at home where they can find you?
I sure can. I take great joy in doing this, actually. On Twitter at Ty Windisch, that's TIWINDISCH. You're going to be able to find pretty much everything there. But to find the Gyro Step Podcast Network, we're basically two pods working together to cover all things Bucks and Wisconsin Herd, the G League affiliate, Gyro Step Podcast Network, wherever you listen to pods, wherever you listen to this great podcast, which you should give a 5-star rating and review to. And you can do that to mine as well. But definitely, if you like this podcast, you got to do that. We also have a Substack and a YouTube. You can find all of this at bit.ly/findgspn or just search it on your various platforms and it'll be there, I promise. But 5 stars, big deal. Rating, review, do it, folks.
Andrew, do I still have to do an outro for this episode? Or can
I think he actually kind of nailed it, but thank you, Ty. It's
better than I could do. For sure. Ty, you're the man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.